The cheapest iPhone you can buy versus the most expensive iPhone you can buy. Today we'll check out the iPhone 13 Pro Max and see how it stacks up to probably the best value cell phone that you can really buy, period. So is the Pro Max worth almost 3 times as much? Let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. Obviously. Yes team, I know what you're thinking to yourself. Obviously, yes, the 13 Pro Max has a lot of new technology that makes it the technically superior phone. From battery life to screen technology to even the camera system on the back. I mean, look at this. Do you see the difference between those two? Yes, obviously I know that this is the technically better phone. But it should be. Like we said a few seconds ago, this costs almost 3 times as much as the demure iPhone SE, and you would hope that those extra dollars would be for something. So today what I really want to do is compare some of the bigger and, for lack of a better word, more important systems and see how far ahead the 13 Pro Max is, and if I would really recommend forking over the money for this, or would I recommend you save some dough and recommend the iPhone SE? Because if you don't know and you haven't seen my videos, I'm a very big fan of the whole Apple SE line. First off, let's dive in by covering some quick spec information so we don't need to keep bringing them up as we go along. The iPhone 13 Pro Max at its base model comes in at $1099. For that money, you'll get a choice of 4 colors, the latest A15 processor, 128 gigabytes of storage, a 6.7-inch Super Retina XDR display with ProMotion, a triple camera array featuring an ultra-wide, wide, and telephoto option, and no kidding, this is not an exaggeration, the best battery life in the business. The iPhone SE, on the other hand, comes in at a base model of $399. For this money, you'll get a choice of 3 colors, black, white, and product red, the A13 Bionic processor, a 4.7-inch Retina HD display, a single, look at that single little sad camera right there, a single 12-megapixel wide-angle camera, and a reported 8 hours of battery life. But that's the quick spec overview, and yes, like we said, the 13 Pro Max easily dominates all comers to its technological funhouse. When it comes to those major systems we talked about, let's start off with the displays. The iPhone 13 Pro Max with ProMotion does have a few key benefits over a standard Retina panel. One, yes, it'll look sharper, cleaner, and it has a 1,000,000 to 1 contrast ratio. And 2, ProMotion allows the phone itself to change the actual refresh rate of the display. If you are doing a lot of fast movements or playing games, the phone can bump itself up to 120 Hz, giving a very smooth operation. Or if you are doing more static things, like reading emails, or you spend most of your days like me thinking really hard how to respond to a Twitter troll, it can reduce the display down to 10 Hz. This will give the phone a smoother appearance when in use, but it can also save you a ton of battery life over a day when it slows everything down. The SE has a pretty standard 1400 to 1 contrast ratio, and it will refresh at 60 Hz standard. But I want you to look at this comparison right now. You see me scrolling, I've got the B-roll of both displays up right now. Can you really tell the difference? If we shoot this in slow motion, yes, you'll obviously be able to tell the difference in refresh speeds, but when was the last time you really looked at anything in slow motion? Yes, you can absolutely see the difference in real life, but like the most useful part of ProMotion, in my opinion, is not in how fast it can refresh, but how slow it can move the display to save battery life. But even if we took ProMotion off the table, the Pro Max would still have a ton more battery life than the SE. So I don't actually think ProMotion is that big of an advantage, one phone over the other. And yes, I know that will get me some angry comments, but I don't think of my phone as a toy. Some of you do, and you want all the funnest, coolest technology, and that's okay, but I think of these devices as tools, and that changes how I look at the practical technology differences between them. Yes, there is a difference, but practically speaking, if you take that difference away, it doesn't change the fact that the 13 Pro Max will have the objectively better battery life. Also, practically, the 13 Pro Max can go up to 1000 nits of brightness, but I've never really had a problem seeing the display on the SE with its 625 nits. Obviously, one of the most striking differences between the display is that the SE comes in from an older design philosophy, while all the 13 phones have the new cutting-edge design. So this, you can see it from right here, this has some pretty substantial bezels, but the Pro Max has a notch, and if all of the complaining that I've seen on Twitter is any indication, notches are like the worst thing mankind has ever invented. I couldn't say it without laughing. If we widen the aperture a bit and look at the rest of the physical differences, you'll notice the Pro Max dwarfs the SE. I mean, look at this thing. It's gigantic. It's like the phone that can eat other phones. This whole video is subjective, but this part skews a little more into subjectivity than the rest. Some folks will love the bigger size, and some folks will absolutely hate the bigger size. Bigger size means more screen real estate, but it also means the phone will be heavier and just not as comfortable to fit into regular spaces. I really like the 13 Pro Max, but dang, it is such a pain in the butt to get into pockets. Look team, You may not know this about me, but I don't really go for skinny jeans or anything like that. I'm darn near 40, and I like my jeans in comfortable stretchy mode. And even with those, the 13 Pro Max is always noticeable in a pocket, and I really don't like that. And look at this. This is so small, it just easily fits anywhere. It fits in bags, it fits in pockets, no problem. It's light enough that you will not know this is there until you need it. But even with its smaller design and bigger bezels, we've got something on the SE that I've missed so much. An actual Touch ID button. Holy crap, I forgot how much I missed this single feature. And the longer working from home and mask requirements go on, the more and more I miss being able to simply unlock my phone by tapping my thumb on the screen. Yes, iPads have started re-implementing Touch ID on their lock buttons, and it's fine, but having it right here is the best biometric unlocker that cell phones have yet seen. Face ID works awesome when I'm not doing anything else, but if I'm not specifically at my desk, here in the studio, or in my home office, it's basically useless. If you're a professional that still has to collaborate with teams and also require masks worn at the same time, I think this single feature might sell the SE, and it's built on an older, cheaper phone. If I were king for a day, I don't know that I'd bring this specific method back, but I do like how some other phones like the Google Pixels have a fingerprint reader on the back of the phone, so maybe with the new iPhone's MagSafe, they could design that in a way that would still let you do that charging but actually have a Touch ID. You could even put it in the little Apple logo right here and it would work amazing. I don't know. I'm just spitballing ideas here. Long story long, Touch ID is the best. We quickly mentioned it a few moments ago, but while both of these phones have glass backs and can work with wireless chargers, the 13 Pro Max has Apple's MagSafe built into the phone and in most of its cases. Very abbreviated, MagSafe is a circle magnet built into the phone, in those cases, that makes the phone lock into certain accessories. The one that I use most often is the MagSafe charger. And while I know MagSafe on the phones is not the most popular of all of the Apple innovations, I actually really like it, and I only charge my phone via a MagSafe charger. It's just so nice to be able to start charging or pick up your phone from your nightstand one-handed as you wake up in the morning. It's just, that's the thing that I like about Apple. It's the little quality of life things that leave the biggest impact on me. Before we move to the inside of the phones, let's talk the cameras. And this is absolutely not subjective at all. The 13 Pro Max has some of the best cameras ever seen on a cell phone. Both for photo and video, the 13 Pro Max is a legitimate powerhouse when it comes to visual media creation. And while the hype train every year says phones are better than regular cameras, I really believe it with the Pro Max. Not only are the individual cameras better, but you get 3 of them. Ultra wide is a ton of fun. The telephoto is actually a telephoto lens this year, and the wide, which both cameras do share in common, is so much better than the SE's camera. It's funny to think that they both come from the same phone line. The SE's camera, well, it's fine. And while no, it's not technically, objectively, or even subjectively better than the Pro Max cameras, it's totally usable. And one point that I want to make on this is, I actually found a charging cable for my ancient iPhone 4S, and I've basically spent this whole weekend watching family videos that I recorded almost 10 years ago. Sure, the less than 720p resolution was noticeable, but it barely mattered, as I've been in tears watching my then 2-year-old run around playing in our old house. Cameras are more about the emotion tied to what you are capturing, and less about the capturing itself. So before you make a decision based on these 2 phones on the camera system themselves, realize when you are watching today's videos 10 years from now, both sets of videos will have the same emotional weight. Moving on to the inside of the phones, the 13 Pro Max is rocking the latest and greatest A15 processor with Apple's cutting-edge 5-core GPU. This thing is a legitimate monster, and it's super powerful, and not just for a phone, but I bet this scores higher than some computers too. The iPhone SE has the A13, which was initially released with the iPhone 11 series, and that's not old or outdated either. The only real performance difference you'll be able to see is more tied to the ProMotion built into the display of the 13 Pro Max than on anything regarding the processors. The Pro Max will feel faster and smoother because the screen is actually moving faster and smoother. If you are into gaming or use your phone for media creation tasks like video editing, yes, the 13 Pro Max will absolutely play faster, and it's not even really much of a competition between the two. But when it comes to practical differences like software updates, both phones should be receiving all the latest operating systems and releases from Apple for the next few years. The iPhone 6s still gets iOS 15, so the analogy here is that the SE has at least 5 more years of relevancy before Apple might consider dropping it from the list. Either of these will last a very long time. The other side of power is efficiency though, and while we mentioned in the specs, I want to hammer it home here. The iPhone 13 Pro Max has the best battery life, that I've ever seen on a phone. I routinely have 50 to 60% battery life left in my phone when I go to bed. And while I don't spend literally all day on my phone, that's a wild amount of power to have left over. It's so wild, I could have a whole other day without charging my phone. The SE gets less than half of that. It's more like a third of that. And having a reported 8 hours of life in actual use probably looks more like 7.5 or even as low as 6. If you are someone that doesn't mind constantly having an external battery with you, or you are able to be plugged in most of the day, who cares, right? Who cares? You just have it plugged in all day long. But if you need to be mobile or can't just sit around in an office all day, the Pro Max will be the actually better useful phone here because you'll never have to worry about it. I like having gear that makes me have to worry less about my day instead of having gear that makes me worry more during my day. And while I would say the rest of the video and the rest of the comparisons are subjective and can easily go one way or the other, battery life is kind of the most important thing for me and is the one spot I would without hesitation drop the SE from my recommendations. But at the end of the day, so what, right? Obviously, look team, obviously I'm being contrarian in this video. I'm not dumb. I totally understand that the iPhone 13 Pro Max wipes the floor with the SE. It's not even really that much of a competition. It's faster, it's brighter, it's cooler, it has better battery life, better everything else than the SE. But the point of the video isn't which phone it's better, is the Pro Max worth 3 times what it costs to buy the SE? I'm not sure that it is in every single situation. If you are looking for a regular family phone to text, browse the internet, take family photos, the SE is still totally capable of doing that and can do so without breaking the bank. Odds are a family will be able to outright afford an SE versus the iPhone 13 Pro Max. And I don't really ever recommend that somebody put a cell phone on a lease or a loan plan. So you are more likely better able to afford this. Plus, if you are a business looking for an enterprise device, well, forget about it. The SE is the obvious choice, and I would assume it's the most popular enterprise phone currently available. The only thing that would make me not recommend the SE to you is if you really need that extra battery life. And that's not a bad thing. I don't think needing extra battery life is a bad thing. I personally do, which is why I have the 13 Pro Max in the first place. But if you don't need that battery wildness, I have no problems continuing to recommend the iPhone SE. No kidding, I think this remains the best value in the phone world today. And if you like this video and you would like to see my thoughts on the smaller of the 13 lineup, you can find my reasons recommending that you should buy the iPhone 13 mini video, and you can find it by clicking right here. Click, 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 click. Thanks for watching.